Hello everyone, my name is Matthew McCaig, and today we're going to be talking about the incredibly popular fan theory, that being Violet Parr from The Incredibles being adopted. Evidence for this theory is two things, timing and genetics. Let's talk about timing first. You see, in the first Incredibles film, we see Bob and Helen, aka Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl, get married. And then the movie flashes forward 15 years in the year 1962. We know this because we see Bob reading a newspaper. The year that the newspaper states is 1962. So if we backtrack 15 years ago, that means 1962 minus 15 equals 1947, meaning that Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl got married in 1947. But also, with this flash forward, we also meet the Incredibles' first-born child, Violet Parr, who is a teenager, which this is the first piece of evidence for this theory, Violet Parr being adopted. Because if Violet is a teenager, say 12 to 14-ish, and Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl got married 15 years ago, then that wouldn't make sense for Violet's age to match up so closely to Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl's wedding. So, for example, if Violet is 14 years old, and since Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl's marriage was married at 15 years ago, that means that Violet would have been 1 year after Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl's wedding, minus 9 months for, obviously Mr. and being pregnant. That means that Violet Parr would have had to have been born 3 months after Helen and Bob got married, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you think about it. Especially because at the start of the first Incredibles, we see Mr. Incredible, Elastigirl, and Frozone all being interviewed by people. And at the end of Helen's interview, she says this.
Down, are you kidding? I'm at the top of my game. I'm right up there with the big dogs. Girls, come on. Leave the saving of the world to the men? I don't think so.
So this clearly indicates that Helen didn't want to start a family. She clearly didn't want to settle down. So if that's the case, then why would Violet's age match up so closely to, Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible's wedding? And here comes the second part, genetics. For you who don't know what genetics is, here's a very, very brief summarization. Genetics is basically the probability of, genes in your DNA. So for example, hair color and eye color. Very unlikely for a blonde-haired, blue-eyed male, which is Bob, brown-eyed woman like Mrs. Incredible, to produce a black-haired, purple-eyed child. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So timing doesn't match up, and genetics doesn't. So clearly this should be enough, right? Is Violet Parr adopted? Well, maybe, but you see, after this theory was posted online, people have come up with two main arguments against this theory. The first argument is, well, the superhero relocation program could have just happened right after Bob and Helen's marriage, and since they were not allowed to be superheroes anymore, they just thought, hey, why don't we just settle down, have a family, and live a normal life? Which would explain why Helen was just so instant to change her mind about having kids and settling down. And the second argument is that Violet could have just easily dyed her hair, which also makes sense, because since Violet is a teenager, and it is common practice for teenagers to dye their hair. And you can take my word for it, because I myself am a teenager, and while I have never had my hair dyed, at least not recently, I have seen classmates in my school have their hair dyed. Like just a few days ago, one of the kids in my school dyed their hair pink. I honestly, I don't know why. I even asked him about it, and he just said, I don't know, I just wanted to. So yeah, Violet is quite shy. I do understand why people would think this. Honestly, a few months ago, I thought that was it for this theory. I thought that there was nothing else to talk about this theory. I thought it was just maybe, until I rewatched Incredibles 2. Because in Incredibles 2, we see 1, one single scene that disproves Violet dyed her hair. Are you ready? We see Violet using a hairdryer. What? Oh, that's right. You probably don't know where I'm going with this. Since Violet is dyeing her hair in this scene, we can assume that Violet's hair got wet, say for a shower, for example, which is probably the most likely, because what else would she be using her hairdryer for? I don't know. I don't know much about like girls drying her hair with a hairdryer. So this means that Violet's hair, meaning that if Violet did dye her hair, you would see the hair dye come out of her hair, but in the scene you don't. Her hair is still black. And do you want to know what that means? It means that Violet's hair, her genetic hair, is in fact black. Finally, people can stop using the argument that Violet dyed her hair. Yes, finally. Finally. Oh, and also to address the first point about the superhero relocation program happening right after Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl's wedding, we don't know when exactly the superhero relocation program happened, but it can kind of be assumed that it did happen after Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl's wedding, since we literally see it happen. But we're not given a specific time period of how many months it's been. I mean, for all we know, it could have happened a year or 2 years after. A few, like 5 months or 2 days. We honestly don't know how long it took. So that being said, I believe that Violet Parr is in fact adopted. If you guys like this video, please make sure to smash that like button. If you want to comment anything, if you have any thoughts about anything, or if you have any additional evidence, go ahead and comment in the comment section below. And if you like this video, and if you want to support this channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. That's all for me, and I'll see you guys next week.